Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the FamVestor Podcast. I'm your host, Sunny Burns.
And I'm your co-host, Sunmarie Burns.
Today, we are talking about happiness. We've been reading a lot, studying a lot, listening a lot in regards to happiness. And we actually gave a presentation this past weekend, and so we wanted to share this as a podcast episode. It was a presentation to young couples, so most of the talk will be geared towards young couples, but really these principles are for anyone. So I think it's a good talk.
Yeah, I think digging into happiness is something we all need to spend more time on to try to make sure our lives are bringing us joy. And if not, take a close look at what you can do to bring more happiness into your life.
Yeah, this is a very actionable talk. We go through some exercises too. So, if you want to do these exercises, pause the video or, make a note of it and do those exercises after you're watching or listening.
Right.
And before we get into that, I kind of want to talk about this idea of buying happiness. And, so many times, happiness and money are, equated or totally not equated. And it's an interesting idea because for so long on our podcast, we talk about frugality. We talk about trying to do all these things without, spending a lot of money, going on hikes, going camping, all these low cost things, not going and falling for tourist traps. But I feel like recently, we've kind of invested a little more money towards things that might bring us happiness. For instance, like in this past 2 months, we've spent quite a bit of money. For Christmas, we bought the boys kayaks. They were like $100 each for little kid kayaks. We bought ourselves kayaks because right now we live at a house that borders a lake. So we have very easy access. We just bought ourselves a sailboat.
A little sunfish.
A little sunfish, 14-foot sailboat. So pretty much the smallest you can buy.
Just a little one-person day sailor to learn how to sail.
And we got a great deal on it. I had to go drive all the way to Staten Island for it. It was $775. But normally it's a $5,000 sunfish sailboat. So I got a good deal. Came with the little tow dinghy too, and so that was cool. But we're excited. We don't know how to sail. We're excited, and we're investing into all these things that we want to, have great family adventures into.
New hobbies we want to develop, and we figured it was worth the monetary investment for the family memories we'll be creating through these activities.
Right.
And to us, it felt like a worthwhile investment, and we were in a place where making that investment was responsible.
Right. And I feel like, so much of the time we try not to equate, financial success with deprivation or, we try to put a spin to it or find like the best, we still try to go on adventures and, seek all this excitement and greatness out of life. But, I feel like recently, we've kind of hit some milestones where we're pretty happy. So we're maybe relaxing a little more of some of our pricing thresholds because we've kind of hit a lot of those milestones. We still want to grow, we always want to be growing, but like things like our $500 a month grocery budget, we've dramatically increased to increase that quality of life in terms of food intake and the groceries we buy and just the quality of goods we buy.
Not extravagantly.
Not extravagant, but just more enjoyable. Like I love shrimp, so we buy a whole ton of shrimp, and just yeah.
And I think the important thing that we're getting at here is to find that perfect balance in your lifestyle. That you are living quality lifestyle. You're, not suffering if you don't need to, but you're also living responsibly and within your means so that you can save and continue, sustaining a responsible lifestyle moving forward, today, tomorrow, 30, 40, 50 years from now. You're not going to be caught in a place of being unprepared, but that you thought it through fully and still allowed yourself to enjoy the present moment as well.
Right. And talking more about our buying streak, we also bought a trampoline. And so it's the middle of winter, but, I was thinking we have this, when we bought this house, we had these really high basement ceilings, 11 feet high, and I was like, what do we do with these basement ceilings? Build a climbing wall, build some kind of gymnastics thing. But then, this winter I was like, okay, let's buy a trampoline. And I was looking online. They're like $400 or $500. So I'm like, okay, that's not crazy expensive. But then I found one on Facebook Marketplace for $150, or it was actually like $250. But she said she'd take $150. So I was like, awesome. So I went to get it, and we installed it. The kids have been having a blast the last 3 weeks. We had it in there
our own
every
little
single
mini
day.
Sky Zone.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool. And so, definitely a worthy investment that I'm very happy to have made. And it's something I wanted, and, we found a frugal avenue to do it, so that even makes it even better. But anyway, I feel like we've been making these little purchases and stuff to kind of help with our life. But I feel like we've been, in our studies, people are like, you can't buy happiness. If you're a miserable person, money's not going to make you any happier. If you're already kind of a happy person, money can definitely
increase your level of happiness,
right,
but it will not make you happy. And
correct.
I think it's such an important thing to remember and keep in mind is that happiness doesn't come from things.
Right.
If you are seeking happiness through the purchasing of things or the pursuit of money to get more things,
right,
happiness will always elude you.
Right.
But if you are a happy person, you've taken care of your inner thoughts and your inner feelings, and you've gotten your happiness figured out, then yes, spending money can amplify your personal happiness.
Yes.
But they're two different things. You cannot buy happiness.
Right. So many people are like, oh, I'll be happy once I get that next raise. And we kind of go into this. Or, if I win the lottery, then I can finally be happy. And it just, they make it dependent on these situations that might or might not happen to them.
But even if they do, they aren't guarantees of happiness.
Once they get there, they realize, oh, yeah, I'm a millionaire now, but I'm really only going to be happy if I have what that guy has, and he's a deca-millionaire, so I got to get that $10 million threshold, and then I'll finally be happy, actually.
Right.
Anyway, without giving it too much away, let's get into it.
You're listening to the Famvestor Podcast. If you're looking to raise your family with intention, gain financial independence, and live a life of true freedom, you're in the right place. Join us as we explore together how to create thriving families, because strong families are the cornerstone for a world at peace.
Welcome back, everyone. So to get us started, we're going to start with a quote. I love this quote, and I really think it's a great place to begin our talk on happiness. When I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life. So I love this quote, and I really think it gets you thinking about what is the purpose of our life. What are we here for? What are we pursuing? What is it all about? Are we pursuing the best career, the best job? For why? For what purpose? Ultimately, human life and the pursuit of what we're doing is towards the end of trying to find happiness.
Right, that ultimate feeling of satisfaction, of fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's what drives us throughout our lifetime in every aspect of what we do.
Right. And so many people kind of believe happiness is this genetic disposition, that some people are just born with smiley faces and some people are born with frowny faces. And, there are different dispositions, there are different personalities, some perkier than others. But it's really a shame because I feel like, this thinking has devolved so many people into just unhappiness. Oh, I'm just destined for unhappiness. And right now, the most prescribed medication in the United States are antidepressants, which is a kind of depressing thought, actually. But, we really believe that happiness is a choice. And everyone has their highs, their lows, things happen. And sure, there are bad days and good days, but everyone has this base level of happiness. But, sustained happiness, we really believe, takes intentional work, takes intentional thought and actions to get there. And so there's an argument, happiness can be
an emotion, a passive emotion, something that happens to you, or it can be a conscious decision, something that you decide to pursue, regardless of what goes on, right? So one is the emotion, I will be happy if such and such happens to me.
Get that promotion, win that lottery, get this great relationship.
Right. Versus, I will be happy despite what happens to me, which is the conscious decision to choose happiness, even in situations that might be tough.
Right. And it's interesting, like when we look at the Declaration of Independence, written right there by our forefathers is, our divine right towards, pursuing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think that's so powerful. They're telling us, our happiness is our own. That you can't give away that control, that autonomy towards your happiness. Like if you say, okay, I'll be happy, when my spouse changes that bad habit she has. You're giving up your right at that point, that right to pursue your own happiness. You're no longer in control.
You're putting that responsibility in someone else's hands.
Right.
If they change, then I'll be happy. If this happens, then I'll be happy. All of a sudden, it takes the control out of your own rights, hands.
Essentially.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a very precarious place to be if you allow your mind to think that your happiness is based off of something else or someone else doing something that's going to bring happiness to you. It puts you on an emotional roller coaster, and you could really be up and down every single day depending on what's going on around you, what circumstances are happening to you. And I think that, the important thing is to figure out how can you stabilize a base level of happiness that you are satisfied with. So every day you wake up happy, and whatever happens that day, you're still going to be happy. Sure, you'll take dips here and there by things that happen, but overall, you're able to hold on to that happiness. And so we're going to dig into a little bit on how to do that.
Right. And I just want to make the point, happiness also, people make it dependent on other people, but also on different circumstances or things that play out, whether they're lucky that day or whether they had bad luck that day, they can make a contingent, like once I pay off my credit cards, then I'll be happy. Once I lose that weight, then I'll be happy. And there's all these things, and that's why, people are just constantly miserable because they're never living the standard that they want to be living at.
Benjamin Franklin said it very profoundly. He said, "The Constitution only gives people the right to pursue happiness. You have to catch it yourself." In other words, you need to go out there. You need to find what makes you happy. You need to capture that. You need to keep it close to your heart and carry it with you through each day.
Right. It doesn't just come to you. You can't just be like, oh, why am I miserable, blah, blah, blah. I want to be happy. I want to be happy. Just whining about it. Nothing's ever going to happen. You have to go after it.
Right.
And we see this so much in terms of when we think about relationships. We just see it all over the place. And, people think, once I get married, it'll be happily ever after. I'll be happy and done.
Right. But that's a fairy tale story that's told time and time again in every romance novel and show and rom-com and, cartoon that you watch. Happily ever after, right? But in truth, marriage, the act of marriage does not make you happy. It makes you married. And it is up to you to decide whether that will be a happy relationship or not, based upon your decisions and how you choose to act and relate with this other individual and how they relate in return with you.
Right. And you might think, happiness, oh, whatever, I'm not that happy, no big deal. But when you're married, and, not even just when you're married, but we really feel like happiness is a moral obligation, not just to yourself, but to all the ones around you. No one wants to be stuck with a spouse that's unhappy, always moaning and begrudging their lot in life. So we really feel like, it's not just about you and your own personal happiness, it's how it affects everyone around you, your coworkers, your children. Like I said, no one wants to be around an unhappy person. And then societally, when you're happy, you are living at, the best way you can. You're more enjoyable to be around. You give more to others around you. And yeah.
And, it just goes naturally that when you put forth happiness out into the world, happiness comes back to you. If you are pleasant and kind and nice to other people, they're far more likely to return a similar vibe to you. If you're negative and you drag people down and you're just unpleasant to be around, most likely it will pull those traits out of other people, and that will be what is returned to you.
Right.
We've been reading a very interesting book lately called Happiness is a Serious Problem by Dennis Prager. And this is one of the points that he drives home, that happiness is a moral obligation, a human obligation towards the rest of humanity. We are obligated to work on our personal happiness for the sake of everyone around us, because nobody wants to spend time with someone who just does nothing to try to work on their attitudes and work on their happiness, and nobody enjoys that. And it just really brings everyone down, not only just yourself. So we are obligated in our relationships, whether professional, career, personal, romantic, family, whatever it might be, we are obligated to work on our happiness so that those around us can also be happy in those moments as well.
Right. And, when we think about happiness, a lot of times we think, it's just a state that'll come. Right. And really, we believe...
An emotional high.
Right. Really believe it takes a lot of hard work to achieve that state of happiness, that baseline level of happiness. And, I want to share these two quotes, and they both come from Dennis Prager. And the first one goes, "Everything worthwhile in life is attained through hard work. Happiness is not an exception." I think at some point he also says, happiness is a battle to be waged, not a feeling to be awaited. And I think that's so true. And the second idea he brings about is this idea that unhappiness comes from when we have a life vision or an image of our life that differs very far from our reality. So he makes into this mathematical equation. Unhappiness equals life vision minus reality. So I feel like when we can live up to our own standards we have set for ourselves, when we have that image of where we want to be, who we want to be, and that is our reality, that's when we feel that fulfillment, that satisfaction in life, and that happiness.
Right.
But when there's such a large deviation between our life vision and what our reality is, that's when we have that unfulfilled, that unhappy view of ourselves.
Right. Knowing where you want to be in life and then living in integrity with that is essentially going to bring self-fulfillment and therefore happiness into your life.
And that's a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of hard work and intention to get there.
So we're going to be digging into happiness as a conscious decision in this talk, not happiness as an emotion, because although happiness is an emotion that's prompted by things that happen to you, we're going to talk about it as the conscious decision because that is something you can control and work on and strategically bring more into your life. Right. And the emotional side is just frosting on the cake.
Right. Coach Wooden says, happiness is in many things, but most of all, it's in being at peace with yourself, knowing that you are making the full effort to do what is right. So we want to talk about this idea of, how instant gratification really sabotages our happiness so many times. And, just juxtapose that against a disciplined long-term approach to happiness. And we have, different comparisons, and you can just think about how this applies to your life. And so we'll compare, instant gratification of maybe buying fast food versus, the discipline of preparing a wholesome home-cooked meal.
For example, it's so easy to in that moment say, I want that hamburger, the juicy burger. I just drive through the drive-thru, hand them some money, and there I go. I have a meal and it tastes good, yum. But what it's doing to your health, it's not the best thing you could be eating. You're not nourishing your body the way you would. You didn't eat something that you were super proud of, and versus the choice of really going home and preparing something that is going to nourish you. It's going to help you to become stronger and to take care of your body in the long run. This is something that's more towards your end result, which is wanting to be a healthy, capable individual for years to come.
Right.
And maybe one time deviating from that life vision isn't going to do too much harm or cause you too much unhappiness, aside from perhaps the regret of, I could have made a better decision in this moment.
Right.
But many small decisions like this, if you pile them up and continue to go for the instant gratification approach, will have long-term results down the road that will create a larger amount of unhappiness in the general scheme of life. That 30 years from now, you're going to have health problems that develop from an unwise choice of food intake, And so thinking about what you want to be when you're 50, 60, 70, you want to be vibrant and active and healthy and capable, well, then maybe making these momentary decisions to go with, a more disciplined approach in the long run is going to reap greater happiness in your life.
No, that's interesting what you said, because that brings up a point that James Clear brought up in his book Atomic Habits. His quote was, "Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity." And I think what you were saying, so clearly portrays that. So some more examples of, the instant gratification approach versus the disciplined long-term approach. Just so many people just borrow on credit. Oh, they see this nice, shiny new furniture set, and they're like, I got to have it now. I'm not going to make this budget approach to affording it 6 months from now. I'm just going to buy it now and put it on my credit card. And that happens time and time again. And then they're drowning in this pool of debt, feeling hopeless. And, that just sabotages your happiness. People are getting into this addiction of playing video games all the time versus, they know what would make them happier would be working out. We know these things, but it's so hard to just, go work out rather than stay in your cozy house and play a video game.
I mean, maybe the act of working out is not going to make them feel happier in that moment. Video games is more fun.
But after you're done playing 4 hours of video games, you're like, what did I do with my life?
What did I do with my life?
But if you do a 4-hour workout, you're like, oh, I'm so proud of myself for getting that done,
Right, and the long-term result of pursuing something like that is you're building a body that you're proud of, that you're taking proper care of, and you're being healthy and just really, allowing yourself to live your best life versus vegging away, doing something that isn't really contributing to your life vision. I'm sure most people don't aspire to sit and do nothing all day, but space out.
Right.
And so, thinking about those decisions, it's okay once in a while to indulge in video games or whatever it might be, the passive hobby, binge watching TV. But you got to keep that in check. And you've got to make sure that most of your decisions are aligning with your life vision and what you want to be.
Right. So I guess what we're talking about is just, the idea of just letting life happen to you. I think they say, adults gain 1 pound a year on average every year of their life. So, they're just letting life happen to them rather than taking control of their weight, taking control of where they want to be, working out, and, ultimately taking ownership of your dreams. Mm-hmm. So, letting life happen to you versus taking ownership of your dreams. That's kind of what we want to talk about here. So let's talk about an exercise on how you might be able to increase your happiness. And first, we're gonna talk about adding activities that increase happiness. We're also gonna reflect now on things that make you unhappy and trying to get rid of some of those things.
Oftentimes, when you're thinking about your personal happiness, it is easier to identify the things that make you unhappy than it is the things that make you happy. So we like to start with that point because I think it comes to mind very quickly. So a good exercise to do for yourself if you want to increase your level of happiness in your life proactively is to sit down, pull out a piece of paper and a pen, and make a list. And what you're going to list on this paper are, what are the things in your life currently today that are making you feel unhappy? Could it be that, you feel that your life is too hectic, or, there's mess everywhere and you just can't seem to keep your house clean? Whatever it might be, there's so many things that can make us unhappy in our life.
Maybe your house is a mess. Maybe you're always late for your appointments. Maybe, you hate coming home to a house with a messy kitchen, a sink full of dishes. And so we brainstormed ourselves this list of ideas, and some things we wanted to highlight was the idea that we were dreading meal times, mm-hmm. and we thought about it like, why do we dread meal times? And the primary reason that we kind of brainstormed was it was because of the messy kitchen, mm-hmm. and primarily the sink full of dishes made it really hard to prepare.
Right. I would get up each morning and I'd just be like, ugh. Another day, and now I gotta go make breakfast. And I didn't enjoy the feeling of waking up and not being happy for a new day. And what we determined was just go into the kitchen. The kids are all hungry. They're like, what's for breakfast? What's for breakfast? And I'm like, I'm gonna cook something. Just give me a minute. Can't find the silverware I need. Can't find the pot I need. There's a mess in the sink. There's not enough plates to use that are clean. I gotta now wash them. And it just became this whole big ordeal. And when we isolated that was a source of unhappiness that was reoccurring in our life, it wasn't anything we were doing anything about, and it just kept perpetuating day after day after day, we said, you know what, this has to stop. And if we just spend a little bit of time to think this through, figure out a solution for this unhappiness, this trigger that's happening, causing unhappiness, then we can completely eliminate this source of unhappiness.
Right, because so many people just live out their lives and like, oh yeah, I hate that, but then they don't do anything about it, and it just completely, it just repeats itself week after week, day after day. This
vicious cycle, this hamster wheel we're on, and it goes to in relationships as well. Perhaps couples fight about the same thing over and over and over for years, and it's the same issue. I don't like the way you do this or that, but if we just take a moment and think about that and how we can solve it, rather than accusing someone else for, you do this and I can't stand it, but actually put your heads together and say, hey, we don't like this. What can we do together as a team to get on the same page to make sure this doesn't continue to happen?
Right.
Come up with a plan. You will fix that problem, and that unhappiness will leave your life.
Right. Taking that 5 minutes, intentional 5 minutes to work together as a team to go over some of these issues that constantly bring themselves up. And that's what we did, and just talking about this specific scenario, we were like, okay, what can we do? And, it was decided that I would wake up, since I wake up earlier than the rest of the family, I'll wake up, I'll unload the dishwasher every single morning. And that way, the dishwasher is clear, all the dishes are put away where they should be, and then throughout the day, we just load the dishwasher. At the end of the day, we put a little pot in there, we press start, and we have the dishwasher go, and it just repeats itself.
We trained our kids too, when you finish eating at the table, go take your plate and your silverware and put it in the dishwasher.
Right.
That way, we don't need to do it. It's in there. It's very passive. And at the end of the day, you just start the machine up. It washes the dishes for you. And we don't have this pile building up.
Right. And we thought about, another huge, life-sucking thing that was happening in our lives where, the kids are just nagging all the time. We weren't feeling connected with each other. We felt like life was spiraling out of control. We can't focus. And we realized a large source of this unpleasantness and not being present in the current moment was this distraction we felt, this escape by our phone, our phones, and that just being, this escape. We realized that's what it was. And so we thought about it. We thought about, what can we do with these phones that we have that are super useful, that
They're
we
a great
feel
resource,
we need.
But we're a little addicted to them.
Right. And so we made two plans. Well, the first plan was earlier, maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, where we bought mounts right next to our charging stations at home.
Magnetic phone mounts,
because we have magnetic mounts in our car for GPS and things. So I bought magnetic mounts that I screwed into the wall, and we were like, whenever we're home, the phones stay in this one location charging, and that's it. When we're with the kids, we're with the kids. The phones are here, and whenever I get home,
not in our pocket, not in our hand.
Right. We'll put it on sound so we can hear calls if they come in or whatever else, and just put it there. And that worked for a good amount of time. And then COVID happened. I stopped going to work, and we had to rechange some things. And so we started using the screen time feature on our iPhones, where Sunri had my password to unlock certain apps, and I had her password to unlock certain apps that were troublesome, like Facebook, Realtor.com.
Basically, time sucks. Things that we would go into, and the rabbit hole would just take us, right. And then an hour later, we'd be like, "Whoa, where'd the time go?"
So we set limits. 8:30 in the morning. That's when the kids generally wake up. To 8:30 at night when the kids go to bed. From that 12-hour period, we locked our phones from each other, and that's been pretty effective.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because, a lot of the points of contention in our relationship were due to this source. Sonny would come home from work and he'd be like, "Oh, hi," and then he'd be on his phone and not really fully there for us, for the kids and for me, and I'd talk to him and he would be absent-minded, so wouldn't hear it or whatever. I feel like I wasn't being heard. And it just caused a lot of unnecessary drama and trouble. And when we identified the source, the trigger that was causing the source of unhappiness, we did something about it. And it really was amazing what changed. When I put my phone away and I allowed myself to be fully present in the moment with my children, they really stopped nagging, because I almost feel like they were competing against the phone, to get mommy's attention. So they do these attention grabbing actions, mommy, mommy, nag, nag, things that are, kind of misbehaving because it'll catch my attention because mommy's distracted on her phone. Phone goes away, mommy becomes present, focusing on the kids' behavior became better, and I could also focus more on the little things that happened and kind of help steer them in a good direction so that the big things didn't explode later on with tantrums and acting out. So it was quite remarkable, the impact that simple choice of just taking our phones and kind of limiting our usage on them had a positive impact in our life. Sonny became fully present when he just hung his phone on the wall, and now he comes home, he is with us, you know?
One idea I heard recently from a father that relates to that was, he also, had this issue of being distracted as soon as he came home. So he was like, okay, I can't trust myself anymore. I am, no matter how many times I commit myself. So from now on, an hour after, or as soon as I get home, I'm leaving my phone in the car. And after an hour has passed, I've talked to the kids, everything's settled down. After 60 minutes, then I can go back to the car and grab my phone. But for the first 60 minutes of arriving home, the phone stays in the car. And I thought, oh, that's such a good rule for himself that, that'll allow him to be in integrity with who he wants to be at home.
Right. It's so important to be living in the moment and really experiencing your life. If you're living on autopilot and you're letting your devices just kind of distract you from reality, you're missing out on so much that this life has to offer. And ultimately, that's going to lead to regret, and remorse. So, all those moments, I wish I had appreciated them more when they were happening to me, but I was too distracted, So this ties directly back to our point of living in accordance with your life vision, what you really want, and trying to be in integrity with that.
Right. Yeah. So make that list of the things that are, causing those interruptions in your life, causing that unhappiness, and then brainstorm how to get rid of those roadblocks, how to smooth out those pitfalls, and
And naturally, you do that. You take the time to do that. You implement those things. All of a sudden, your life is going to be so much happier because you have mitigated these unhappy triggers that pop up over and over again.
So the next exercise, kind of the counter to that, is list the things that make you happy. We brainstormed this. We came up with a lot of things: date nights, traveling more, hanging out with friends, exercising, running, yoga, resistance band, stretching, hiking, walking, getting enough sleep, financial security, physical touch,
planning for the future, self-improvement activities we like to do together, hobbies, cooking, dancing, art, crafts.
Yeah, playing together, playing board games, Sudoku. Yeah, we really got into Sudoku recently. And I was just thinking, how do we play more? I'm not hanging out with coworkers as much. I want to play more with Sunmarie. And I was just thinking, how do we do it? We tried some apps, tried some video game apps. We're both not into video games at this point, so that didn't work out so well. We tried reading, which we still do. We liked reading. And then recently, we really got into Sudoku. Mm-hmm. And I just went to the dollar store. I picked up 2 of the same Sudoku workbooks so we compete at the same puzzles at the same exact time. And at first I was always beating Sunmarie, now Sunmarie beats me, and now I'm beating her again, so it's good. It's back to the
good
normal.
Competition.
And it's just fun. But
it's fun, and it's a nice thing that we bond over, and
right.
We do it every evening, and it just allows for that time of connection, which is so important to really connect with the people that you care about and build those meaningful moments.
Yeah, and I like active things a lot. So we've been playing like ping pong together at night. I bought a little ping pong table. Oh, that's another thing I bought. A ping pong table for $50 off Facebook Marketplace. We installed in our basement so we can play once we put the kids to bed. So that's been fun. Also volleyball. We've just been bumping and passing to each other because that's a passion of mine. And we just signed up on Monday nights. We'll be playing volleyball. So excited for that after the kids are asleep. Your mom will be babysitting, so it'll be pretty awesome.
Right. And just, realizing what are the things that ignite passion within you? What are the things that just make you feel alive? Right. For each of us, they're different. But usually we can identify what those things are and get specific when you're making this list. It's one thing to say, exercising makes me feel like I'm coming alive. But what kind specifically? Because certain exercises are not some people's thing, and they might actually not bring you happiness, but others do. Like for me, I always wanted to do Irish step dancing, and I also wanted to get more active in my daily life. And so I signed up for an Irish step dancing class, and I absolutely love it. And I know at least once a week when I go to that class, I'm giving one dedicated solid hour towards this activity, which is, contributing to my physical health and fitness. And it's something I absolutely love doing. I'm learning a new hobby and a new form of dance. And I just come home feeling so alive after doing that. And, it's just a simple choice to figure out what it is that brings you happiness and then carve out time into your schedule so that you allow yourself more opportunities to spark that happiness in your weekly schedule.
Right. And so it's this idea of scheduling the good in your life, opening up your calendar and saying, hey, during these slots in my day, I want to dedicate to these areas of importance in my life. So, you made that, hopefully you listed out some activities, some things that you want to incorporate into your life to bring about that happiness. And for me, I like to wake up an hour earlier than I have to. So if my work start time is 7 o'clock, I like to wake up at 6, 1 hour earlier, and then spend that hour working on my passion projects before the kids are awake, before, the daily obligations I might have come into effect. I can work on what I truly want to work on. So just creating those appointments, creating those schedules for yourself. There's different things you can do, daily routines. You can use something called time boxing, which is something I've been doing recently, where you kind of just create your waking hours and you block off an hour, 15 minutes at a time, what you'll be doing. And then even if you don't stick to it, at least you have an idealized schedule of what you would love to be doing with your life. And I feel like that's so important.
It's so important because, no matter how much you love something, if you know that something brings you joy, but you haven't actually given yourself time in your schedule to actually do that thing, then it's not bringing you happiness. Because if you don't schedule something, it's not going to happen and you're not going to do it. So if something brings you happiness and you want more happiness in your life, you got to plug it into that calendar. You have got to carve out and reserve time for that happy building activity, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and there's also this idea of habit stacking that I also learned from James Clear in Atomic Habits. And it's, stacking another habit on top of another habit or activity. So like for me, before I take a shower, I make it a habit to do 10 pull-ups. So I'll do anytime I want to take a shower, first I got to do 10 pull-ups. So that's kind of like stacking a habit with this, activity of doing a shower.
A routine that you already do regularly.
Right.
And then tacking onto it something that you want to get more consistent with.
Right. Or before going to bed, we read some pages of a book that we're reading. So currently it's the Happiness is a Serious Problem.
Right.
And then just again to promote more happiness, the idea of gratitude prompts.
Not enough is said about the value of gratitude. Truthfully, gratitude is almost magical in a way, because you really can't feel gratitude for something and at the same time feel negativity towards that thing in your life or your life in general. If you are grateful for something, you can't be unhappy with it, or you can't feel negative about it. And so the practice of looking at your life and looking for what you can be grateful for helps to change your mindset, make a mental shift away from unhappiness and negativity and towards gratitude, thankfulness, and ultimately contentment or happiness. So what we like to do is to end our days thinking about 3 things that we're grateful for. And also at mealtime for a while, we're doing that too. We would ask the children, what are you grateful for today? Name something that happened today that you feel gratitude for. And it just is creating that mental space where you are shifting from just the commonplace or the negativity or whatever mood swing you might be on to hey, let's check in and appreciate all that is good in our life. And there is so much good in our life. Even when things aren't going right, even when we are struggling through things, there's always something we can be grateful for. And just making that a constant attitude is so helpful towards cultivating a sense of happiness in your life.
Right. So we hope you enjoyed these tips. We hope you enjoyed these activities and actually take the time to do these activities, because it's one thing to passively listen throughout this podcast, but it's another to take the time to flesh out your own thoughts on these, your own issues in your life that you can smooth over. And yeah, that's how you change your life. It's not just by listening, it's by taking action. So I really recommend, after listening to this, you can listen to it again and follow through those activities, or, just take out a piece of paper and start listing out those elements of your life that are bringing unhappiness and what you want to incorporate more of into your life, and then actually schedule that into your day. So with that, we want to thank you guys for listening, and we wish you the best. Godspeed.